I've been a trucker for close to 15 years now, and in that time, I've seen a lot of strange things on the road. But nothing prepared me for what happened to me in 2017. It was an overnight haul through the Mojave Desert in California, headed for a destination in Arizona. I think I was delivering appliances, though, to be honest, the specifics escape me now. All I can remember is the oppressive darkness surrounding me as I drove. The night was pitch black, with only the dim lights of my truck cutting through the darkness. I had been putting off getting my headlights fixed for far too long, and now it was coming back to haunt me. Usually, I wouldn't notice the difference, but on this deserted stretch of highway, the darkness felt suffocating. I strained my eyes every few minutes, trying to make out the road ahead. Each bump in the road echoed through the cabin, and the quiet hum of the engine was the only companion I had. I debated pulling over for a couple of hours, thinking I might just wait for sunrise, but I was desperate for the money. The thought of wasting time when I could be making a delivery weighed heavily on my mind. So I kept driving, convincing myself that as long as I stayed on this straight road, I'd be fine. I could always stop and rest when I got closer to my destination. About an hour before dawn, something caught my eye in the distance. I squinted, trying to make it out. At first, I thought it might be an animal, something that could run into the road and cause a serious accident. My heart raced as I slammed on the brakes, the truck screeching to a halt. What I saw next sent a chill down my spine. It was a car with its hazard lights flashing, but it was parked oddly, right in the middle of the road. What struck me as even stranger was that the passenger door of the car was wide open. My truck came to a stop just inches away, and while most people might have felt a rush of fear in that moment, I felt a wave of curiosity wash over me. I wasn't one to back down from a challenge, and I thought maybe someone needed help, a flat tire or maybe a jump start. So I shifted into reverse, intending to pull over beside the car. As I got closer, I felt the stillness of the night wrap around me. It was unnaturally quiet, almost as if the desert itself was holding its breath. The faint clicking of the hazard lights was the only sound cutting through the silence, creating an eerie rhythm. I approached the car cautiously, glancing over my shoulder every few steps, feeling a growing sense of unease. Was this a trap, or was someone really in trouble? Despite my growing apprehension, I decided to investigate. The car was a new-looking Ford Fusion, gleaming under the moonlight. I peered inside, but the front seat and back seat were completely empty. The key was still in the ignition, but the engine was turned off. My curiosity began to dwindle as I realized that I was expecting someone to need help, someone who might have taken a nap in a dumb spot. But the reality was much stranger. There was literally no one inside. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I cast a few glances around, acutely aware of how isolated I was. There was something wrong here. I could feel it in my gut. My instincts screamed at me to get back in my truck and drive away, but against my better judgment, I decided to check the trunk. I pulled on the trunk release, but it was locked. Feeling brave, or maybe just foolish, I grabbed the key from the ignition and unlocked the trunk, but to my surprise, it wouldn't budge. It felt jammed from the inside. My heart raced as I wondered what could be in there. I decided to check through the back seat. With a quick motion, I opened the back door and leaned inside, hoping to get a glimpse of whatever was blocking it. Just as I reached for the bags, a sound erupted in the stillness of the night. The loudest gunshot I'd ever heard. It echoed through the desert, and I felt the shockwave rattle through my bones. I slammed my head on the roof of the car in surprise. My heart raced as adrenaline coursed through my veins. Without thinking, I threw the keys onto the front seat and bolted out of the car as fast as I could. I scrambled back to my semi, fumbling with the door as I jumped inside. I turned the ignition, and the engine roared to life. I shifted into gear and prepared to get the hell out of there. That's when I caught sight of him, a figure standing at the trunk of the car. He was a short, husky guy with red hair, wearing overalls and shin-high boots. In one hand, he clutched a small shovel, and in the other, an old hunting rifle. Our eyes locked for a few seconds as my truck began to drive past him. He didn't move. It was as if time had stopped for a brief moment. I could see a worried expression on his face, a look that said he was just as startled as I was. But then he dropped the shovel and started waving his hands, yelling for me to wait. The urgency in his voice made my skin crawl, but I wasn't about to stick around to find out what he wanted. I stepped on the gas, pushing the semi harder than I should have. The engine roared in response, and I felt the truck lurch forward. I drove for about 5 minutes, my heart racing as I tried to shake off the panic. But then I saw headlights fast approaching behind me. The same red Ford Fusion was tailing me, and I could feel my heart drop into my stomach. This was no coincidence, he was after me. I was terrified, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. I called the police, trying to explain the situation while my heart raced in my chest. Behind me, the Ford began honking like crazy, its headlights flashing aggressively as it continued to tail me. I didn't know what to do. All I could think was that I needed to get away, fast. After what felt like an eternity, the Ford cut in front of me and slammed on his brakes. My heart stopped as I swerved to avoid crashing into him. I thought I was going to die right there. Just as I was about to lose control, something caught my eye ahead, flashing police lights. Relief washed over me, but I knew I couldn't let my guard down yet. The Ford veered off to the right and sped into the desert, disappearing from sight. I pulled over to the side of the road, my heart racing as I waited for the officer to arrive. I frantically recounted the story, my words tumbling over each other in my desperation. But the officer seemed more interested in filling out a report than chasing down the guy who had just threatened my life. I was furious. I told the officer repeatedly that he could probably catch up to the guy if he left right away. But he brushed me off, saying not to worry. He promised that they would do a thorough search as soon as backup arrived. I was shaking with frustration, feeling like my words were falling on deaf ears. I had just narrowly escaped a potentially deadly situation, and I felt completely helpless. Eventually, they sent me on my way. I never did hear from them again. They didn't call with any updates, and the whole experience felt surreal. None of my buddies have a story this crazy, and I've told it more times than I can count. As I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something dark and sinister was lurking in the shadows of that desert. Some might think that the guy in the desert was just a harmless weirdo, but I know what I saw. It's hard to rationalize what happened that night. I still wonder about the garbage bags in that trunk. I convinced myself that he was probably just burying an animal, maybe a sick dog or something equally innocent. But deep down, I know that there's a chance he was involved in something far darker. Driving through the desert at night is something I've never felt comfortable doing since that experience. The road can lead you to places you wish you'd never encountered, and sometimes it holds secrets that are better left buried. The shadows in the darkness might be hiding things we can't even begin to understand. Picture this. The open road stretches endlessly, an inviting promise of freedom for truckers like our narrator. But for many, this seemingly simple life can quickly morph into a chilling nightmare. Our narrator, a young individual who once walked the halls of a prestigious university, finds solace in the solitude of long hauls, having dropped out due to personal struggles that left them seeking refuge in the cab of a truck. Friends and family often say, "You could have been more than a trucker." But for them, it's not just a job, it's an escape. However, this escape comes with its own set of demons lurking in the shadows, ready to awaken when least expected. 3 months into this new life, the narrator embarks on a daunting 12-hour drive from southern New Jersey to Lafayette, Indiana. With the weight of 2 hours of previous driving still fresh in their mind, fatigue clings to them like a heavy blanket. This is not just any trip. It's a journey into the unknown. Determined to meet their deadlines, they choose to brave the night. It's during these late-night drives that the darkness becomes a living entity, wrapping around them like a shroud, making the mundane seem sinister. As the hours drag on, an urgent need for energy strikes like a bolt of lightning. Reaching for a Red Bull, the driver discovers the horrifying truth. Their supply is empty. An avalanche of frustration sweeps over them, knowing they have to stop. The prospect of pulling over is unbearable, Even a brief halt can drain them further. In their mind, it feels as though they are staring down a fork in the road. Stay awake and risk everything, or stop and confront whatever waits in the dark. Just ahead, a glimmer of hope emerges, a service stop glowing faintly in the distance. Relief floods over them as they pull in, but as they draw closer, a sense of foreboding begins to take root. This isn't a bustling service station, but an abandoned gas station, its windows dark and foreboding, creating an atmosphere of decay. Despite the ominous aura, a rumor of another convenience store nearby lingers in their mind. They park the truck, anxiety prickling their skin, and muster the courage to step into the unknown. Expecting one of two outcomes, an open store or a locked door, what greets them instead is pure darkness as the door swings open with an eerie creak. Stepping inside, they are swallowed by the shadows, an unsettling sensation washing over them. The silence is oppressive, and with each step, a chill runs down their spine. What happened here? Where are the lights? Is anyone watching? A deep instinct kicks in, warning them that something is terribly wrong. Just as they prepare to leave, a faint glow catches their eye, beckoning them deeper into the store. Curiosity mingles with fear, pulling them forward against their better judgment. As they move toward the source of the light, their heart pounds louder, echoing in the silence. They discover a refrigerator, plugged in but completely empty, its shelves hollow and abandoned, evoking a sense of dread that wraps around them like a vice. As they turn to leave, a sudden noise breaks the stillness, a clatter from the main room that freezes them in their tracks. Heart racing, they stand motionless, grappling with the sheer absurdity of the moment. Had they imagined it? The tension thickens the air as they slowly step back into the main area, eyes darting, scanning for the source of the sound. The fear of the unknown gnaws at their resolve. Nothing seems out of place, but instinct screams that something is very wrong. Deciding it's best to leave, they hurriedly make their way to the exit. Just as they reach for the door, a fleeting glance back reveals something terrifying. The door is ajar, swinging gently in the wind. They are certain they had closed it behind them. Panic surges through them, igniting their instincts to escape. A primal fear drives them as they push through the exit, anxiety flooding their veins. Throwing caution to the wind, they dash back to the truck, heart pounding as they jump into the driver's seat. The engine roars to life, and they merge back onto the highway, relief flooding through them. Yet the bizarre encounter lingers in their mind, an unsettling memory they can't shake off. As they hit the gas, they tell themselves it was just an abandoned place, but the darkness doesn't easily release its grip. As the caffeine kicks in, a new dread settles over them. Glancing in the rearview mirror, they notice movement, a curtain fluttering as if something was hidden behind it. Panic courses through their veins. Were they truly alone in the truck? The isolation feels oppressive, the shadows behind them morphing into something sinister. They could almost feel the breath of a phantom drawing closer, chilling their very bones. Frantically, they punch in the nearest police station's address on their phone, the tension mounting as they drive. Each passing second feels like an eternity, the fear of an unseen presence lurking in the shadows behind them gnawing at their sanity. They could almost hear whispers in the wind, urging them to look back, but they dare not. The road seems endless, and every turn feels like it could lead to their doom. Finally reaching the police station, they stop as close as possible, nearly tumbling out of the truck in a rush to safety. Officers swarm around, and they explain the bizarre and terrifying events. Their words spill out in a frantic rush, the urgency of their story fueling the tension. But as the back of the truck opens, the nightmare truly begins. From the darkness of the truck emerged three figures, each one more disturbing than the last. Two men and a woman, dressed in rags, shivering under filthy blankets, casting a haunting shadow over the scene. One man brandished two switchblades, his eyes wild and vacant. They all stared at the driver, their expressions twisted with malice, as if they had emerged from a nightmare. An eerie silence filled the air as the police approached them, leading the trespassers away. But a deeper question hung in the air. What had these individuals wanted? The driver stood frozen, grappling with the terror of what they had just witnessed. What had those individuals wanted? Why had they been hiding in the truck? The questions swirled in their mind like a tempest, and they knew they would never have answers. The cops, serious and focused, conducted their investigation, but for the driver, the whole ordeal felt surreal. They were just a witness caught in the web of someone else's horror story. As the sun began to rise, illuminating the desolate highway, the driver knew their life had changed forever. The road, once a source of freedom, now felt like a treacherous path lined with hidden dangers. Every mile they had traveled seemed to echo with the ghosts of their encounter. In the solitude of the night, they learned that sometimes the darkest fears are the ones we carry within, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to break free. As they returned to their truck, a sense of foreboding washed over them, reminding them that the shadows of the past would always be there, ready to haunt them whenever the road turned dark again. In the weeks that followed, the driver couldn't shake the experience from their mind. Each trip felt tainted by the fear of encountering something equally sinister. The open road, once a comfort, now loomed as a battleground against their own anxiety. Memories of the abandoned gas station haunted them. The flickering lights, the echoing footsteps, and the chilling figures that had emerged from the darkness. They often found themselves driving during the day, hoping to keep the terrors at bay, but the shadows of the night clung to them like a persistent ghost. On one particular afternoon, as the sun hung low in the sky, the driver made a stop at a diner. While sipping coffee, they overheard a group of truckers talking about similar eerie encounters on the road. The stories poured out, whispers of strange lights in the distance, abandoned places that felt too alive, and figures lurking in the shadows. With every tale shared, a sense of camaraderie blossomed among the truckers. But for our narrator, it was a reminder that the world was far more dangerous than it appeared. The roads held secrets, and they were merely passengers in a game played by unseen forces. Curiosity ignited within the driver. Could they return to the gas station? Was it possible that their previous encounter was merely a figment of their imagination, amplified by fear and fatigue? The idea took hold like an obsession. They spent sleepless nights planning, drawing maps of the area, researching online, and speaking to locals. The stories of the shadows became whispers of adventure, and soon, the lure of the abandoned gas station became an irresistible call. After days of preparation, they set out on a mission to confront their fears. As they drove back to the site of their earlier nightmare, dread coiled in their stomach. The sun began to set, painting the sky in ominous shades of red and orange. Upon arrival, the gas station stood as a ghostly silhouette against the dying light, and for a moment the driver hesitated. Was this bravery or folly? Stepping out of the truck, they felt the chill of the evening air creep under their skin. The silence was deafening. As they approached the entrance, memories of their previous encounter flooded back, every shadow and sound amplified. But this time, they had a flashlight and a sense of purpose. Entering the store felt like stepping into another world, a world suspended in time, filled with forgotten relics and an atmosphere thick with unease. The faint flicker of their flashlight revealed shelves laden with dust, but no signs of the horrors they had faced before. Exploring further, they uncovered strange symbols scratched into the walls, remnants of past encounters left by others who dared venture here. The deeper they delved, the more the air thickened with tension. The refrigerator stood in the corner, eerily silent, and for a moment they hesitated, recalling the terror of their previous visit. With newfound courage, they approached it. The door creaked open, revealing a dark void. It was empty once more, yet an unsettling feeling washed over them. They weren't alone. Just as they turned to leave, the air changed, and a low growl echoed through the aisles. Heart racing, they spun around, flashlight trembling in their grip. Shadows twisted and coiled in the corners, and from the depths of darkness emerged a figure. A man, disheveled and wild-eyed, clutching a baseball bat. His presence was both menacing and tragic, a living embodiment of the nightmares that had plagued the driver. "What are you doing here?" the man barked, his voice trembling with a mix of aggression and fear. The driver, taken aback, tried to explain. I just wanted to understand. I had a terrifying experience here." But as the words spilled from their lips, they realized this man was a part of the story. a ghost tethered to this place, living in the shadows. He had been watching, waiting for someone brave enough to return. The line between reality and nightmare blurred as he shared his own tale of horror, speaking of the darkness that lingered, feeding off fear. The man's story unraveled like a dark tapestry, revealing how he had been living in the gas station, haunted by the shadows that had once captivated the driver. They had chased him into the night, a gang of sinister figures drawn to the darkness. He spoke of how the gas station served as a portal, attracting lost souls and those seeking refuge but never truly allowing escape. They were both trapped in a nightmare, each facing the specters of their past. As they spoke, an uneasy alliance formed between them. Understanding blossomed amidst the fear. Together they resolved to confront the darkness, to reclaim the space that had held them captive. With a renewed sense of purpose, they devised a plan, one that would involve confronting the very fears that had brought them together. Stepping into the shadows, they prepared to face whatever awaited them, knowing they would not be alone. Armored with newfound courage, they stepped into the depths of the gas station. The shadows thickened, a palpable presence pressing against them. Whispers echoed, a cacophony of voices rising to a fever pitch, threatening to engulf them. But they pressed on, shining their flashlights into the dark corners, illuminating the hidden fears that had taken root. Each flicker of light pushed back against the oppressive darkness, forcing the shadows to recede. In the heart of the gas station, they discovered a hidden room, its door hidden beneath layers of dust and grime. As they pushed it open, a gust of wind rushed past them, filling the air with a rancid stench. Inside lay remnants of past encounters, discarded belongings, tattered photographs, and remnants of lives once lived. The shadows roared with rage, as if furious at their intrusion. Yet amidst the chaos, the driver felt a sense of purpose ignite. They were here to reclaim not just the space, but their own narrative. Gathering their strength, they faced the darkness head-on. With each step, they shouted their defiance against the unseen forces, declaring their right to exist without fear. The shadows writhed, battling against the light. The man beside them roared with fury, claiming his own space within the storm. It felt as if they were waging a war not just against external forces, but against the demons within themselves. As their voices rose, the darkness began to dissipate, revealing the truth hidden beneath the layers of fear. The gas station, once a place of despair, transformed into a symbol of resilience. In their shared struggle, they had forged a bond, their lives intertwined in ways they had never anticipated. The haunting presence that had once loomed over them faded, replaced by a sense of empowerment. They emerged from the shadows, reborn. Driving away from the gas station, the driver felt a weight lift from their shoulders. The road ahead was still uncertain, but now it was filled with possibility. They had faced their fears and emerged stronger, ready to tackle whatever lay ahead. The shadows may linger, but they were no longer afraid. The truck, once a vessel of escape, now felt like a chariot of hope. As they navigated the highway, they knew they were no longer just a trucker, they were a survivor. Thank you for joining us on this haunting journey. If you enjoyed this tale of survival and bravery, please like, share, and subscribe for more chilling stories. Remember, the darkness may always be lurking, but it's how we face it that defines us. Until next time, drive safe and stay vigilant.